This is the weekly, daily, or hourly reminder you need to make sure you're registered and planning to vote. Then please allow me register and make a plan to vote. Why? I don't know, because I said so. Need another reason? Or, okay, how about today? I say because of the environment. I shouldn't have to still explain to people that it's important that we care that our planet remains, somewhat habitable for us and our children and generations to come. Our planet shouldn't have to be the "this is fine" meme every damn day. So I have some serious choice words for the people who think climate change isn't real, who don't care that we just had a hotter summer than the year before, and we could probably expect that next summer will be even worse. Or maybe this summer will just never end, and next summer will just be summer 2024 2.0. Oh my God. So allow me to remind you that while in office, Donald Trump rolled back more than 100 environmental protection rules. He also pulled the U.S. from the Paris Climate Agreement, and you bet Project 2025 has something to say about what the Environmental Protection Agency should be focusing on, or rather, if it should even exist. It simply makes me burn up with rage, unlike the planet, which is burning with fossil fuels. This is Choice Words. I'm Samantha Bee. My guest today is actor Shailene Woodley, who you know and love from Big Little Lies, The Fault in Our Stars, The Descendants, If You're My Kids, the Divergent series, and the forthcoming Three Women. She's also a climate activist, even though she doesn't necessarily love that title, and we talk a lot about how we can all make easy choices to better the planet. So take a listen and make good choices. Oh my God, I'm so excited that you said yes to doing this podcast. I can't even tell you. I was
Of course, I
thrilled.
said yes. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Oh God, we met, just like for people who are listeners of the podcast, we met just a couple of months ago, really,
Yeah.
at an event at a beautiful gala, a conservation. Oh, you're like deep in the environmental movement, and we were going to talk about that, but you go all over the world on grand adventures, doing athletic things and diving into waters and doing all of this
Athletic things, I guess it's true. Yeah.
oh, it's true.
Yep.
Meeting people all over the world, saving the world. I like to talk about the choices that people make in
Oh,
life. And I feel like you are the exact person that I want to talk to, because when I read articles about you, interviews with you, or I see them, you're incredibly thoughtful about the choices that you make, the path that you take. You're so open and really vulnerable, and I think it's really cool. So, what is it like for you to make a choice in life, like a big one? Are you good at, do you embrace that? Are you like, ooh, let me get into it? Or are you terrified?
no, I mean, I'm always terrified, which is
Mhm.
why I do it.
Okay.
I think choice is actually the greatest freedom we have on this planet
Mhm.
as humans. It's kind of the
Right.
only thing we have in some ways, because we live in these like structures and these systems and these institutions, and choice is really the compass that allows us to navigate a life that can be a life well lived, or a life well
Right.
um juiced, and for better or for worse, I've always had this sort of insatiable quality that I want to know everything about the human experience. I want to like taste it and smell it and feel it and live it and
Mhm.
cry about it and grieve about it and be angry about it and be joyful about it. And choice has been that the opportunity for me to understand what all of those qualities can look like and feel like. And I guess I am terrified of big choices, but I always make
Right.
them.
It's funny that you said the word juiced, because actually, when I think about you, I think you are the type of person who gets all the juice out of the orange. You like
I do.
squeezing the you do.
Oh God, I do. And let me tell you, Sam, sometimes it's so painful to get all the juice out of an orange.
Yes, sometimes you're left with a dry husk, and you just go, "I'll compost it, and I'll make something good with it."
Exactly.
Right?
At least it smells
Wouldn't
good because it's citrus.
at least it's fragrant. It's beautifully fragrant and cleansing. How do you deliberate? Like, if you're faced with a big career decision or something like that, how do you attack it? Do you just let it sink into your bones for a little while? Do you deliberate, or do you just dive in? Do you like strap on a single fin and like dive to the bottom of the ocean?
Sometimes it's an instant yes, and then when it is, I fight.
Yeah,
I fight and I do everything I can to protect that instant yes because I feel like that's such a rare treasure when there is that
right,
instinctual sort of butterfly explosion in the bodies and in the cells and every part of me. I can't sleep. I can't do anything because I'm obsessed with the instant yes. And then when it's not an instant yes, instead of reminding myself, "Oh, this is probably a no," because I'm not getting all of those feelings,
mm,
I
okay.
sit and I deliberate and I freak out and I call I really lean on my people. I'm very
Mhm.
lucky to have a tight group of people that I trust implicitly, so I'll lean on them and I'll kind of pick their brains a little bit, and then I try to give it as much time as I can, and now I'm in a new phase of life where I really value my peace and I value my
Okay,
center. If there's a decision or a choice that's giving me anxiety, now I try to remind myself that that's probably a no. Even if it's sexy, even if it's enticing, even if it's like something delicious that could come out of that choice. If there is like an unrest
right,
in me, I try to listen to that as much as I listen to the full
right.
blown yes.
You do talk about butterflies. You either get butterflies or you don't. But like, have you ever said yes to something and then you were like, "Hey, I don't, I can't do it.
Oh, all the
I'm
time.
so freaking out."
That's happened to me in relationships, that's happened to me,
Okay.
in my career, that's happened to me in choices I've made about where I wanna live or, how I wanna live, and it's so disruptive, and it's so unnecessary that I try to protect myself at all costs from doing that anymore. But I still do it constantly.
Oh, constantly. But it's good. It's like one of those I often talk to people about learning how to say no to things, which I feel like I learned it from reading an article about Oprah.
Mhm.
She was like, "You have to learn how to say no." Are you good at that?
I'm really good at saying no unless I'm unclear. Like, sometimes I find
Okay.
for better or for worse, again, like, I have a really strong moral my values are very strong, and I think I'd have very high integrity, and so every now and then, if I'm in a situation that compromises my personal idea of what is right or wrong or morally
Right.
correct, but there's, like, that kind of artist side of me that's a glutton for human desire, experience, whatever. If I'm in that situation of questioning my connection to my integrity or my connection to my desire to, like,
Mm,
juice life, I cannot know how to say no. And it gets stuck in
right.
my throat, and it's such an uncomfortable ugh, it's such an awful feeling.
Awful. Can you think if you just the kind of looking back, is there a choice that you can think of that you made that really impacted your life in a way that maybe you like didn't necessarily expect, or something that had even a small choice that had these big wild reverberations?
Yeah, I mean, 2 massive things stand out to me. One was when I was, 19, I had this film come out called The Descendants, and I'd been acting for 13 years at that point, and it was the first time
Yeah.
that Hollywood really came into my awareness, because up until then, it was just like this fun thing I would do, and then I would leave and go back to the suburbs and hang with my friends and go camping, and suddenly I had studio execs and people around me being like, "You need to dress more cosmopolitan. You need to do this. You need to do that." And I was like, "Bitch, I'm 19. I want lovers. I wanna see the world. I wanna, like, know things. I don't wanna dress
Right.
cosmopolitan. What does that even mean?" it was disturbing to me, and my reaction to it was to get rid of everything I owned and move to Europe. Actually, at that point, I moved to Hawaii. I moved to Hawaii first, and then I moved to Europe, and for 10 years, I kinda just lived out of a carry-on suitcase, and when I wasn't working, I would meet somebody on a train or in a hostel, and I'd ask if they wanted to learn English, and in exchange, they could teach me their language, and I would do their dishes, and I just lived with strangers for almost 10 years, and it was wildly informative and shaped so much of who I was. And I didn't know at the time, it was, to me, it was normal. I was like, why isn't everyone trying to do this? And it
Right.
wasn't, if I didn't have money or if I was struggling financially or whatever, like I would pick up a skill and I'd wash dishes for a few months between things. And I think it expanded my view of not just European life or Fijian life or all these other places I lived, but it
Mhm.
helped me understand American life in a lot of ways. So that was a big one. And then in 2016, I made a series of choices politically, and there was this movement about a pipeline on Native American
Right.
reservation, and I was out there for almost a year and heavily involved with the community there. And afterwards, when you said, "Did I make a choice that I didn't expect what would happen?" I suddenly became this person that everyone thought of as an activist or an environmentalist or a
Right.
and I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, I'm not any of those things. I'm just like a girl who cares and happened to stumble into this situation. This wasn't something I sought out. It was something that kind of found me, and here
Mhm.
I am, and tomorrow I might be somewhere else, and tomorrow I might, devote myself to something else." And that shook my nervous system a lot, kind of having again the world look at me in a way that I didn't choose, but in sort of
Right.
given this label that was a label I didn't identify with.
Isn't that so funny that it's so true that I think people in the world writ large is so much happier if they can just call you a thing and pigeonhole you in an exact way that makes sense, that they can order it in their brains.
Yeah, and I look around and I'm like, "Yo, why are we all performing? I'm so tired of the performance."
Right.
And I
Right.
think the
Right.
label is a part of that performance. It's like, if I can understand you as this one thing, then you're
Mhm.
safe, because I don't have
Right.
to accept that you're a complex, multi-layered, emotional being.
Hollywood was like, "We're gonna make you this. Now you're gonna get fancy. Now we're gonna make sure, like, now we're gonna put you through the rigors of this like Hollywood washing machine, like this like spin cycle that we put young women on, young actors, really." And you were like, "Fuck you. I'm gonna go be a dishwasher for a while." It's a rare quality, actually, to know yourself that well at the age of 19. How do you account for that? Or just were you like a child who was born and just knew yourself? Or did that develop over time?
I think I was definitely a child who knew myself. I had a pretty intense childhood. I had
Mhm.
a lot of unusual, extreme situations that I went through as a child, outside of acting, outside of the industry. And for
Mhm.
me, acting was sort of the only it was the in a lot of ways, I think it was the thing that sort of saved my life. Like, it gave me this outlet to
Right.
be a free being. And so when suddenly Hollywood tried to take that away from me, it was like this
Oh,
fierceness in me of going, "Hell no, this is my thing. This is my joy. This is my craft." But I never looked at it
right.
as some, like, artsy fartsy thing. It was really like a lifeline that I wasn't aware of as a lifeline until later on in life.
Okay.
But when that was threatened to become
Mm.
something else, I got angry, and it was like that rebellion in me of going like, "Fuck you for trying to steal the thing that makes me feel alive." Um, and the way that I reacted to that was, I'm gonna go search for other things that make me feel alive.
That is really powerful. You were
It
like, "This is my safe thing. This is my thing.
Yeah.
You can't alter it."
It was fun. Like the one beautiful, I mean, my parents did a lot of beautiful things, but one of the beautiful things they did was as a child actor, I had three rules. I had to stay the person they knew I was. I had to do good in school, and I had to have fun. And I love
Okay.
that they included the fun piece of it because it was always and is always fun and never
Yes.
became this like agonizing, I'm an actor, I'm an artist, I have to drown
Right.
in my own, pain in order to survive. And it was a joyful expression instead of something that felt agonizing.
Right. Or like a necessary expression or
Yeah.
something. Like, because I'm thinking about what I've read about Three Women and the way that you talk. It feels like it was like a necessary for you to do,
Yeah.
maybe a difficult and like difficult and raw.
I've always been obsessed with desire, sex,
Hmm.
sexuality, because it's such a suppressed subject in our culture, and yet it's
Yeah.
everywhere. It's like the bacon hanging in front of the dog, but the dog never really gets bacon. And then living in Europe for so long and seeing how erotic Europeans are simply by existence. They don't try. They're just very much in their bodies, and they're very free, and they're very um it's a different way of relating to self. I look at our culture and the women in our culture, and the family that I come from, and the things that I have been through that are so corrupt and don't need to be. And so when I read Three Women and when I met Lisa, I felt for the first time like there was an opportunity to tell a story that every woman can relate to, and also men, whether they choose to open their eyes to relate to it or not. Like, these are common themes. These are not strange esoteric ideas about female
Hmm.
psychology. And it did feel like a necessary thing to bring to the screen.
Isn't it so funny when you go, like, I will never forget going to like a European beach for the first time
Yeah.
in my one piece bathing suit, like North America, like Canadian,
Right.
just like so everything's covered. I'm
Yeah.
just like zinc on the face, like a big caftan,
Mhm.
and all the women are just like in just the bottom of a bikini, smoking,
Yeah,
and they're
drinking
so
wine.
close, drinking wine, and they're like, and their kids are like off doing whatever. They're like, bye, and they're having like this such a great normal relationship with their bodies, and then they just like bend over into the cooler to grab a sandwich and their ass is in your face and they're
Yeah.
like, I don't care, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh wait,
Yeah.
I'm the problem,
Yeah.
like I'm the weirdo.
Right, but it's all like we're the weirdos because we're not
Right.
taught how to be safe in our own bodies, because every example
Right.
around us says the body is not a safe place to be. And so it's
Right.
so many mixed signals constantly. And then you add like porn and societal pressures and all of the
Yes.
things that are around. And as Americans, and now with social media and technology, it really is every day. You have to make a conscious decision to connect, because intimacy is unfortunately a fleeting thing. It's
Right.
going.
Yes, yes, making connections. I think often about the themes that are emerging in this conversation. Like, just when you think back to like the career trajectory of Britney Spears is like a perfect example that just like everyone was just obsessed, like openly obsessed with her virginity.
Yeah.
So they both want to portray her very sexually at a young age, but they also need to know that she's like sexually pure. And it was like the most, I mean, it's psychotic.
It's
Doesn't make any
psychotic.
sense.
It's psychotic.
Yes. And that was so long ago. And I just don't think things have changed all that much.
No, they haven't. I mean, there's all these statistics too about young kids are having less sex and touching each other less than
Yes.
ever before. And it's interesting, as I think a lot about religion and institutions, and as they
Hmm.
are sort of changing, I think people are less religious maybe now than they were in the 90s during the Britney Spears rise. And
Hmm.
as those things are changing, there's this new kind of counterculture of being like highly offended by everything, and the cancel culture thing. And I think young people just don't know where to be. They don't know like how to find, there's no example of a center, of having a connection outside of society in a way. And so that I think adds also to the pressures that also exist in the sexual sphere of having to be perfect, having to look a certain way,
Right.
having to perform a certain way. And man, oh man, it really breaks my heart.
I mean, where you can actually meet people in real life is it's like vital.
Yeah.
It's vital. And I do think that there will be, like in subsequent generations, we're all going to learn these lessons. And at some point, maybe not exactly my children's generation, but the generation after, they're just going to throw off the yoke of certain types of technology, I think, and just be like, I don't use that. That's like, even my children's generation are a little bit like, my brain is frozen. I'm going
Yeah.
to walk away.
Right.
It's very healthy. So I want to talk about Three Women a little bit more because it's a beautiful, vital, interesting book. And
Yeah.
I love that this adaptation has been made. She's also the executive producer of the show Adaptation. Okay, so the character in the book is a journalist, somewhat based on her, somewhat based on Lisa. What's it like to play someone, sort of, who you can talk to in real life? Is it harder or better?
I think if it wasn't Lisa, it would be harder, but because it's
Okay.
Lisa and because she and I have some kind of otherworldly cosmic connection, it
Okay.
really felt quite easy. All of the stories, most of the stories that Gia goes through plot-wise are
Hmm.
realistic and truthful to Lisa's personal history. But the
Okay.
person that Gia is and the way that we talked about bringing her to life and different characteristics and mannerisms are not reflective of Lisa. And so
Right.
there is some truth in parallel, and then there is a lot of fiction in there so that
Yeah.
so Gia felt authentic. And Lisa and I strangely have been through a few similar things in life. And so that also helped kind of shape the narrative of how Gia was going to be elicited. And I just,
Hmm.
it was incredible to play Lisa because she's such a creature of truth for
Right.
all of the truth and the breath that she gives other people. She really allowed herself to be vulnerable with this show and specifically with the Gia character because it is her truth. It is her history.
Right.
And that is, wow, that's so vulnerable, I think.
I think I was watching an interview with her, and she said something that I thought was so poignant, which is that women are like allowed to talk about what they don't want, but they're not really allowed to talk about what they do want.
Yeah.
And that felt really real to me. Like that really resonated for me.
Yeah. She's so good at that, man. She really knows
Really
how to
good.
nail the little sound
She
bites.
nails it.
It's so true though. It's so true. I'm single at the moment. I'm very single and my friends have been like, write down the 5 and 10 or write down the things that you want, the qualities to manifest.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
I wrote down, I couldn't, like I'm an extra person. So what was supposed to be like a list of 5 qualities turned into like a 30-page poem. And they were like, Shailene, you need to like, narrow it down a little bit. And it's
they're
really
like not so much writing. They're like, actually, we're gonna amend our suggestion to you.
and so now it's just 2 pages. But even in that, like I have people go, and this is such a silly anecdote, but they're like, you can't have all those things. You can't have and I'm like, what do you mean? I want those things. I can have those
Yeah,
things. And by the way, I am those things. I am all of these things as well. And
yeah,
so just that's like a silly, very surface level example, I think, of what you just said. But it's this idea that the minute that you start dreaming of a life that is actually the life that you want to live, we're immediately told as women, no, you can't have that. It's too
yeah,
impossible. Your ideas are too grand, or you're asking for too much, or whatever the negative no is. uh it pisses me off, to be honest.
yeah. They're like, actually, looking over your list, you're allowed to have 7 out of the 10 things that you want.
It's just
Like,
wild though. I
what?
mean, even as a mom, it's like so many women still are told like to work or and be a mom and be a partner and have and be an artist or be a creator, whatever you might want to do. There are all of these restrictions on how you're supposed to do it instead of just going, dude, I have a skin suit on. I am alive. There are cells in my body working miracles. And I want to be this today. And tomorrow I might change my mind. But why can't I try it? Why can't I be that if I'm living from a
Right.
place of goodness and kindness and, self-reflection and awareness? Why are we limiting ourselves? It makes no sense
Right.
to me.
Right. Right. Okay. One of my favorite things, because the book is very much about women and their relationship to sex. Still, we got our North American hangups, but
Yeah.
especially I do think that is so well illustrated in how we teach sex education in our schools. So
Hmm.
I always ask people, you'd like to think that it isn't still a gym teacher teaching, but it actually is, and it's worse than ever. And now, people are cutting their sex ed curricula, and people know nothing about their bodies. The knowledge of your body is very esoteric, and especially in American schools, in the education system. What would your dream sex ed look like? Like if you were inventing it out of whole cloth, what would it look like? I
Oh,
like to dream about what is possible.
I mean, I'm probably the wrong person to ask because I'm like, you want to go there? Let's go
Listen,
there.
but like, I mean, well, you lived in Europe for a long time. It's totally different there. It's like totally different. Like
It's
reading about sex education in the Netherlands, you're like, what? You talk about pleasure?
Yeah. I think the first thing would be like, here's the anatomy of a female body.
Sure.
Let's talk about
Yep.
that first and all the different parts of the female body.
All the
And then
parts.
all the parts. There's so many parts. And then also, I think one of the things that's the most sad to me is when I talk to women and they still think that there's only one type of orgasm. That always kind of shocks me.
Right.
And so I feel like in my dream scenario in sex ed, it would be there's a million different ways for your body to experience pleasure. Here's a few. So you at least have like a starting off point to know it's
Hmm.
not just like a little like rub and you're done. there's like,
Just like in a porno, you just slap it a few times. It's easy.
there's a lot of different ways. And I think a huge part of the sex ed thing that I would talk about is it's actually so easy for your body to experience pleasure if you feel safe. Because that's something that I have always run into in my life, which is being someone who has been very lucky to have had many different types of experiences throughout my life. If I don't feel safe, my body shuts down. And I then,
Right.
when I was younger, would internalize it as what's wrong with me. And why can't
Right.
I be a certain way? And why am I not feeling a certain thing? And why is my body not reacting a certain way? Instead of going, oh, this isn't a safe experience for whatever reason.
Hmm.
And I can't actually, there is no access to pleasure because the road to pleasure has been stolen by the head and the thoughts and the
Right.
awareness of the experience instead of just being present in it. I can only be present in that type of intimacy if there is a ground of safety. And we're not taught that. It's like, here's a condom, here's how it works, have fun. So
Yeah.
much of it is still so oriented about, sort of the male anatomy. And it's not just for women. Like, I think that if men knew what was possible, which like young boys just don't because there isn't any
Hmm.
education around it, if everyone knew what was possible physically and emotionally and the beauty that can come from pleasure, that's like an emotional beauty, I think that people would be more interested. I kind of look at sexual energy as this serpent that's like goes through and I have experiences with some very kind of traumatic things sexually. And so I think of it a lot as like the serpent that sort of goes into people and uses like our bodies
Hmm.
energetically. And we're sort of these zombies walking around going, I really want to connect and I don't know how, and I'm supposed to do this, and I'm supposed to do that. And there's all this awareness and okay, now it's done. And I'm going to shove that aside and compartmentalize and go back to my
Right.
life. But then there's still this energy running through us. And until we're aware of that, I feel like it kind of runs us instead of us running it. And that's something I would do in sex ed.
We're all just looking for intimacy.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than true intimacy, which is not necessarily always, which is not like always sexual in nature. It's like the intimacy of like a touch and a
Yeah.
connection and eye contact and an understanding between two people.
Do you think with intimacy, because I've been thinking a lot about this recently, like what to
Hmm.
me makes intimacy intimacy, and I've come to the conclusion that it's just pure honesty. Like if someone's
Hmm.
honest with me and they show me who they really are and how they really feel, whether it's a
Hmm.
negative or a positive thing, that's intimate. What do you think?
It's very intimate. And there's also, there's something about the intimacy with a partner. Like I've been married for a long, long time.
Hmm.
I don't know, 23 years or something like that. And there's safety in it. And there's something about, there's like a fluidity between myself and Jason. Like when one person is feeling strong, they are supporting the other person. When one person is feeling weak, they look to the other partner. Sometimes we're at the same level of strength and weakness, and sometimes one of us needs more support, and then we fall back, and then the other one needs more support. And that creates a sense of total safety because we can truly be, we are just like truly openly ourselves.
Mm. I'm
That
fascinated
doesn't that
about it.
doesn't always look like us caressing each other in the
Yeah.
face every morning, but we're always connecting, and we connect through laughter. Like we connect because we think we're really, each of us is, we make each other laugh. It's
That's
our best
huge.
connection. It's huge. It's
Mhm.
really huge. And
Laughter
so
is huge.
it's huge. Like again, going back to what you said earlier, you have to have fun with your partner. You have to be having fun.
Yeah,
Otherwise, what are we doing here?
I know.
Like it can't always be fighting and negotiating. If you're not having fun, you're not meant to be together. It's time
Right.
to like,
I
you're
know,
supposed to
but
have
don't you
fun.
feel like so many people, is it settle or compromise? I've never been in a relationship longer than 2 years, and sometimes I look at
Hmm.
myself and I'm like, "Am I scared of intimacy?" And I don't think that's what it is. I think I just haven't found the person
Yeah.
we do the 23-year thing together with yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I have so many friends and people I respect who are in relationships where they're like, "Well, you know, it's this and this and this and this and this aren't fulfilling, but there's the kids and there's the house and there's the responsibilities." And I look at them and I'm like, "You are so beautiful as a human being. Why are you doing this to each other? Because you're not bringing out the highest best." And I think that's also endemic in our culture, which is like,
It is. You're supposed to be additive. Like a person should be additive to your life. You need to be additive to another person. And sometimes that means you're actually doing something that you don't feel like doing today. Like, I don't know, doing the high intensity composting,
yeah.
whatever. But you know what I mean? But there's a give and take. Like everybody has to just like, sometimes you're just pitching in because it's a
Yeah.
team. But most of the time, you're pitching in because you love each other and you're like building something together. But it's about being additive. And I think like if a relationship subtracts too much from you, I don't know, man, it's going to be pretty hard to ride the crest of menopause with someone who doesn't have your back.
Yeah,
Fuck that. You'll get into your 50s and be like, I don't do this anymore.
right.
Now I live for me. So like you're going to end up going into these like big things together later in life, and if you're really not balanced, it's probably not going to work out, and that could be a very good thing. Sometimes it is better to have your cats. Listen, can I tell you something? This is just such a sidetrack, but my son has a cat sitting job right now.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, he's so cute. He's 16. He has a cat sitting job. It's
Oh,
adorable. And one of the cats, I swear to God, I swear to Jesus Christ, is a man trapped in a cat's body. It's like this cat is like was turned into a cat by a witch's curse. Like it's like he has the face of a man in a cat. I wish I had a picture of his face. It's just like you're like, what?
Okay,
Who
so
is
I'm obsessed with cats. Obsessed.
Oh,
I have 2 cats.
okay.
Um,
Oh, me too.
they're just
Oh my God.
they make no sense. I'm like, "Bro, you were so chill, and now you just did 7 cartwheels in a row, jumped 8.5 feet in the air, tapped the ceiling, ran around the room, and now you're laying down again. What the fuck just went through your head?" Like, can you please
I
explain what happened?
First of all, you have to send us pictures of your cats.
I will.
I'll
They're the
send you a
best.
picture of
Oh,
I love cats so much that when like JD Vance is like childless cat ladies, I'm like childless cat lady. Bring me. I could easily live in a house with 40 cats.
I know. It's funny. Every time I meet someone who's not a cat person, I'm like, "Why are you not a cat person?" I have a really
Yeah,
good
what's
story
wrong?
to say about my cats. But I was like, "Why are you not a cat person?" And they're like, "Well, they're too moody. They run away. They don't cuddle." And I'm like, "My cats are the ultimate snugglers. They like I wake up,
Yeah.
one is here and one is here, and
Oh yeah.
they're all up in me all the time. There's nothing more sensual than a feline. Like these creatures
Oh,
know how to be in their bodies." And
you're not kidding.
I also feel like they're fierce protectors. Like I
Yes. They have emotional intelligence. They have discernment. They have
they
choices. They make choices, and sometimes you don't like their choices. You gotta live with it.
I
I
had
love it.
a guy spend the night who I had just
Mhm.
kind of like, we were like sort of casually dating.
Yeah.
And he stayed the night at my house for the first time. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, my cat was like rustling in the bed. And he's
Mhm.
not a cat person. And I was like, is it okay if my cat sleep? And I reached over to collect my cat and the bed was wet. And I was like, did this dude just like miss the bed? My freaking cat peed on in the middle of the night. And I was like, "Oh my god." I mean, I was mortified, obviously, because I also didn't really know this person very well. And, like, I picked my cat up, and
Wow.
took her outside, and I woke him up, and I was like, "I'm so sorry, my cat peed on the blankets, like, I have to change the comforter, ah!" And he was like, "It's fine, she was locked in, she didn't have her lit." Like, what a nice man this man was, and he handled it with so much grace. But I woke up the next day, and I was like,
Wow.
"Wow, you were not quiet about your opinions on this dude. You were
You
very
s
discerning in that choice."
strong opinions.
Oh my
Strong That's such a strong statement. Cats never make a half statement.
no, and I love it. I'm like, going again, the performing thing, they do not perform, they just are. They're like, "This is how I feel, and it shall be known."
Okay, I wanna talk just a bit about your, because 'cause you're so interested, so engaged with well, I'm gonna say activism on
Yeah.
climate change. I have to say it, but like you're active. I mean, you're just so active and you have really focused your energy on the oceans. Like what draws you to okay, because I saw Hope in the Water, in
Mhm.
which you do an episode about the changing California coast, and I learned so much. So
I
can you
did too.
describe why is it so important to promote eating less popular seafood? I don't think people don't really know that.
Yeah, I didn't know it. I knew it in theory, but I learned a lot doing the
Mhm.
show.
Yeah.
When we it's easy to be apathetic towards something that's not in our face constantly, you know? And
Right.
I remember growing up, it was like, you'd see the billboards everywhere, and you're not gonna care about cancer until someone in your family gets cancer, and then you're gonna care about cancer, and then you're like, that was
Right.
sort of the message I feel like I remember the most when I was a kid. And interestingly, now I feel like the message is like, you have to care about the earth, and you're not gonna care about it until it's on your front doorstep, which is true. And yet the sad thing is once it's on your front doorstep, it's like on your front doorstep, and the floods
Yeah.
and the fires and the storms and the climate refugees, like it's such a massive international issue that we're contending with. And as far as the fish go, overfishing is massive. And I think people don't,
Yeah.
I didn't really realize like to be a fisherman in that way, not just like talking about the oceans, because to me, you can't talk about the environment or the oceans without talking about humans because we're so
Hmm.
intricately connected and intrinsically connected. And so many of these people who are on these commercial fishing boats going out to fish the tuna and the salmon and all of these big they call them like the big five or whatever. A lot of these people are trafficked. A lot of these people are told like,
Right.
here's a job, we're going to send all this money home to your family, give us your passport, and then they never get their passports back. And then they're stuck on these
Right.
boats. And so it's such a to me, like, yes, we should stop eating just these few species of fish because, or maybe reduce our desire to eat just those because of the ramifications on the sea, but also because of the ramifications on humanity. And
Right.
when I started opening my eyes to like, oh, what would it be like to buy the oysters or the mussels or the clams or this weird fish I've never heard of when I go to the butcher area or the fishmonger at the grocery store. It also like that is including a new cycle of sustainability that includes the emotional well-being and physical well-being of humans as well. And the more
Right.
that we make lifestyle choices that encourage the financial kind of capitalistic side of our food systems, that's
Right.
going to influence the way that these systems affect communities around the world. And so it's a really big conversation. And when I look at environmentalism in general or conservation, it goes back to how we started this conversation, which is that we have one life, man. And I have a fierce like there's like a mama bear in me that just wants to protect people and remind people that this life can be beautiful. It doesn't only have to be a life of suffering. It doesn't only have to be a life of pain and the rat race of trying to survive and trying to make money just to pay the bills, just to like make sure your kids are
Right.
okay. And the only way that's going to change is if we all decide to be a little bit more uncomfortable and adjust our lifestyles a little bit, just a tiny bit, to include a broader perspective that can affect the rest of humanity. And it sounds maybe idealistic and like a hippie thing to say, but it's just true. And no one, I feel like very few people actually want to participate because it feels so large. But the small decision of choosing a different fish at a supermarket actually can make a difference.
It's so misunderstood or just like not conceived of is just like our food systems
Hmm.
and also fashion. I think
Yeah.
fashion is a huge area in which we all really play a very deep part and can make change incrementally, definitely over time, but incrementally through with our pocketbook and the choices that we make. Like if we turn away from unsustainable eating, unsustainable shopping,
Hmm.
unsustainable fashion choices, it could help. It could incite something. It could cause you to have a consciousness about things.
Well, it's interesting to me. Like, I've thought a lot about why these systems are so strong. And we kind of live in this culture that says, like, don't think for yourself. Don't have your own, forget opinions. Like, definitely don't have your own opinions, but don't express yourself as a version of you. And if you're going to express yourself for who you are, the only way to do that is through fashion, makeup. Like, it's so physical.
Right.
And that informs like, the choices that we make with fashion, with food, whatever, instead of valuing how does your heart see the world? And how does, like, what makes you tick? What makes you feel
Right.
alive? What is your light? Oh my God, you're pursuing your passions. I'm going to celebrate that because I'm not here to be attached to you and need anything from you. I'm here to be devotional to you. I'm here to like devote myself to your well-being. But your well-being should be like the way that you feel and the way that everything like when you walk into a room, what is the energy you're bringing instead of what do you look like and what do you sound like. I think if we were able to shift importance from the identity of a physical perspective to the identity of like an emotional, mental, spiritual
Right.
perspective, man, I think all of those institutions, all these institutions that are really kind of plaguing our planet right now environmentally would change very quickly.
if we all could just agree on a single jeans silhouette for the rest of time, we'd save so much money.
We would
And
save
so much water.
and so much
So much.
stress.
So much stress, too much stress. Oh my God, it was so much fun talking to you.
I adore
People are
talking
gonna,
to you.
I adore talking to you. People are gonna love Three Women. I mean, like, we've been waiting for this. So we are ready.
I hope so. I just hope people see it. You know, to me, like Three Women is, ugh, it is a show that just sees us. I feel like it really sees us.
Right.
And there is not one piece of the show that I think not everyone will find a point of relation to. For me, it's very healing. So I wonder if it will be healing for others.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. This was so fun. What a
Thank
delight.
you. So much fun.
That was Shailene Woodley, and I had no choice but to look up one thing. She mentioned the big five fish that make up the majority of the fish we eat. I could name the first few, but I had to check the rest, and it's cod, haddock, salmon, tuna, and shrimp. And yes, it is definitely important for us to start trying other fish to give the big five time to repopulate. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Samantha Bee. See you next week for some more choice words. Thank you for listening to Choice Words, which was created by and is hosted by me. The show is produced by Tzvia Baron-Reinstein with editing and additional producing by Josh Richmond. We're distributed by Lemonada Media, and you can find me at RealSamB on X and Instagram. Follow Choice Words wherever you get your podcasts or listen ad-free on Amazon Music with your Prime membership.